Welcome to Bonn Park. I'm Sarah Geidlinger.
And I'm Marshall Ward.
And tonight we have Sassy Ray.
Oh, super fun interview.
She was a joy and we had too much fun.
Yeah, we talk about a whole wide range of things, including Bob's Burgers.
There's a lot to talk about Bob's Burgers, but we mostly talk about Sassy Ray's burlesque career.
Yeah, I think this is the most fun I've had ever on a podcast.
I had a lot of fun too. Here she is, Sassy Ray.
Welcome to Bonn Park.
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 Do you enjoy Bonn Park podcast?
If so, we would really appreciate it if you
Leave a review,
like, rate, subscribe, but most importantly,
share directly from the platforms
with your family and friends. That's the best way to get the word out to everybody, and more people will get to see our show that way. So click those like buttons and share our show. Thank you.
Thanks.
On with the show. This is it. Bonn Park is supported by La Di Da Gourmet Sauces. Want to eat healthy, delicious, fresh, plant-based food? Well, La Di Da. La Di Da Gourmet Sauces makes a perfect accompaniment for any dish. Pasta, pizza, veggies, noodles, and more. The savory mushroom basil sauce is wonderfully flavorful and creamy and completely dairy-free. They've got a butternut squash beet sauce that is an amazing tomato-less twist on sauce. And their dairy-free cauliflower Alfredo is huge on taste while light on calories. And it's also keto approved. Their sauce is even beloved by a dragon. Investor Arlene Dickinson of Dragon's Den and the general partner of District Ventures Capital joined the 3 women entrepreneurs who started La Di Da as a 4th partner in the company. You can find La Di Da gourmet sauces at Vincenzo's in Waterloo, check out ladidasauces.com, and find them on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at La Di Da Gourmet Sauces. One taste and you'll be saying La Di Da. Bonn Park is supported by Gifted in Waterloo. Gifted has some of the quirkiest, funkiest, and coolest gifts you'll find anywhere, like tea infusers, mugs, cozy reading socks, plant pots, cushions, and throw blankets, along with amazing puzzles and games. Want the perfect gift for that hard-to-buy-for special someone? Whether you're looking for something nerdy, literary, cute, funny, bizarre, local, nostalgic, or unexpected, Gifted has it. Among all the unique items from around the world are amazing creations by local artists, along with one-of-a-kind greeting cards. You're bound to find what you're looking for, even if you have no idea what you're looking for, at Gifted. Shop online at giftedwaterloo.com and check them out on Facebook and Instagram. We are supported by Counterpoint Brewing. Serving a selection of robust stouts, hoppy pale ales, and deliciously fruity and funky sours, Counterpoint Brewing has beers for every season, brewed with only the highest quality ingredients. Counterpoint Brewing is passionate about perfecting certain styles of beer, reinterpreting others, and exploring new flavors and concepts, as their tap list speaks to different people and an endless variety of flavors and traditions. So if you're looking to pique both your interest and your palate, Counterpoint's bright sunlit brewery and tap room is a destination for anyone who enjoys savoring and enjoying something new in the world of craft beers. And while their tap room is currently closed, the doors are open for bottles to go Thursday to Saturday 2 to 6 p.m. and curbside pickup and local delivery are available. Visit Counterpoint Brewing at 935 Frederick Street, Kitchener. Check out their online retail store at counterpointbrewing.ca or follow them on social media. We are supported by Heartbeat Hot Sauce. All of Heartbeat sauces are made with maximum flavor and balance in mind. They've got a range of flavors including red habanero, jalapeno, pineapple habanero, blueberry habanero, piri piri, and a scorching scorpion pepper sauce. Heartbeat Hot Sauce ferments their peppers using traditional methods, then cooks them with a few simple, high-quality ingredients. They add no water, thickening agents, or chemical preservatives. Their sauce is fresh and natural. Whether you're a spice junkie or have milder tastes, Heartbeat has a flavor for your palate. You can find Heartbeat Hot Sauce in specialty shops like Vincenzo's, La Fromagerie, and the Allura Mercantile, and select Loblaws and Sobeys supermarkets. Visit them at heartbeathotsauce.com or follow them on Instagram and Facebook. Treat your tongue to some exciting new flavors that will raise your heartbeat.
thank you so much. I mean, I own it. I purchased it.
It is yours. My mom used to say that joke. Oh, my mom was so funny. I used to say to her, because she had these wild nails all the time. And if I hadn't seen her for a bit, I'd be like, are those your nails? She's like, they are now, honey.
They are now.
I know. I love it. What a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Sassy Ray, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
We're very excited to talk to you. We normally start out by saying how we met, but you were one of those brave souls that answered my cold DM message. Hey, I've got this little show. Do you want to come talk to us?
Like, yeah. I'm going to be on a show? Me? Yes.
And that I'm learning is what your profession is all about.
That's right. I'm a burlesque performer and teacher, mentor, producer, cabaret, the whole shabingo bango.
Does anyone use the word vaudeville, or is that from the oldie times?
It is used. I like the word cabaret to kind of describe more what I do, because it's comedy and music, and it's a more of a like an old timey adult variety show.
Love it. So Marshall and I are very interested in this aspect.
Yes.
When people say burlesque, everyone thinks the classic stripper song and that burlesque is stripping. And that is not necessarily true.
It's not necessarily true. I think when people hear the word burlesque in modern times, they usually think, number one, of the movie with Christina Aguilera and Cher. That's cute, but that was a movie. That's not really what happens in the mainstream of things in burlesque nowadays. They have a very kind of narrow idea that it's basically, if you were to go to a strip club in the 50s or the 60s, when laws were very different around women's bodies and what they could show. And there certainly is classic burlesque and revival burlesque. That's a genre, but burlesque as an entity now is very different. It encompasses activism, pop culture. I mean, any theme you could think of, there's a genre and a show that has happened. And it's so much fun. I'll talk all night about it. So I'm glad you have lots of questions.
How did you get into this type of work?
Well, when I was a little girl, I always was a very fancy child. I loved dance and singing and drama. I was always a performer. And when I was about 12, I watched a movie called Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yes. And for those who might not be familiar with this masterpiece, it was a movie that came out in the mid-90s, and it was about 3 drag queens in Australia that had this beautiful refurbed bus named Priscilla. And my family growing up was so obsessed with this movie, we named, like, our minivan was named Priscilla. And it was just this amazing movie about these drag queens and their adventure on the road, and the wigs and the costumes and the sparkles. And I mean, that was just
fanfare
what I've always, the spectacle, the performance. Yeah. So I'd always been obsessed with drag queens. I grew up around a lot of gay people. And in my sort of early adulthood, most of my friends were gay. I'm queer myself, so I spent a lot of time around drag queens. And at that time, women, cisgendered women, wasn't really a thing. That wasn't, nobody did that. And so for a long time, I used to say, oh, burlesque is like drag for women. Which isn't the case at all, because drag is for everybody. But long story short, I was go-go dancing in a gay bar in Kitchener. Renaissance,
been there.
It was my cheers. Renaissance was my cheers.
Oh, that's great. Oh my gosh.
Man. So yeah, I was go-go dancing for a drag queen, backup dancing for her. And this woman approached me, and she was putting together a burlesque troupe. And she just asked me, like, have you ever considered doing burlesque? And I think this was 2006 or 7. YouTube wasn't a thing yet. So I was like, what's that? And she kind of told me, like, well, it's, she sold it to me as like, it's like sexy dancing, but like curvy girls can do it. So I was like, and then I figured out what it actually was, and was like, oh shit, well, question. Can I swear on this show?
Yes, this is our show and our content.
Great.
Yes.
Fantastic. I
Not
love how I
for
asked that after I said shit.
No, it's,
shit. Can I swear?
Struggle. I think on our third episode, I said tits, and I was trying to say like a titch of something, or like just a little. And I said tits, and then I kept referring back, like I can't believe I said tits. I ruined the whole episode.
Blew it, Sarah.
I blew it. Okay, I have to let this out because I watched Priscilla with my very good friend Greg. And is that where I learned this song? Fish gotta swim, birds gotta fly. I gotta love one man till I die. Yeah, okay, good.
Oh yeah, there's some great ones from that soundtrack. And so yeah, it really like I was saying, for a long time when I would talk about, if I'd been interviewed or was making public speaking, talking about burlesque, I would describe it so often as it's like drag for women. It's whatever you want it to be. It's a character. You can be a super vamped up, high femme presentation. One of my really good friends, Charlie Quinn out of Toronto, she can be the most glamorous, beautiful pinup, like out of a magazine, and then she does another number where she's Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Or Ruby Moon is another one of my one of my best friends. She runs a troupe in Guelph, and she's a ballet dancer, so she does beautiful things on point where like people don't even clap because they're just in awe of how beautiful it is. And then she comes out and she's Napoleon Dynamite. So it's not just one thing. It's a really creative and entertaining, kind of fringe art.
And as a performer, you're making up each of these acts. You're coming up with the ideas. You're fleshing them out. You're probably sewing costumes and rhinestoning or buying a wig for Napoleon Dynamite.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So a big part of what I love to do is to choreograph. I'm a dance teacher, and I was in the before time, in the long ago, back in March 16th, 2020. I was a teacher, but creating concepts and choreography is a huge part of it. But you're right, the costuming, it's hard, especially if you're dating and you're meeting people. Like, what are your hobbies? Like, well, I like to smoke a lot of jazz cigarettes and put Bob's Burgers on and rhinestone a thong for 4.5 hours.
That's peaceful, actually.
But it is. It's like, people make like Diamond L art for the wall. I put it on underpants and I wear them for my friends.
I love Bob's Burgers.
Oh yeah, I love Bob's Burgers too. I do a good Linda.
The first couple episodes when you're trying to get into the show, you have to kind of get to know the family.
Yes.
First. And then once you do, it's those incredibly subtle nuances of those characters, like Teddy.
Oh, yes.
That just you fall completely in love with every character on that show.
I love Gail when she goes,
Linda, when are we going to play my song? That's okay. I'll just play it quietly underneath.
That is perfect.
If Megan Mullally ever, I don't know, dies, hire me.
No, that was absolutely perfect.
I don't know this show, but I am so impressed by that voice.
No, that was bang. I've seen every single episode many times. That was bang.
Derek Dematopoulos.
Gail is a train wreck.
Oh, yeah. Gail is, she's a single gal, has a few cats, not unlike myself.
When I heard you speak of Club Renaissance, I thought about how so Sarah and I both got to experience the music scene here in the 90s in Kitchener-Waterloo and clubs like the Volcano and I once heard music scenes described kind of like a wave from the ocean comes in, and then after a while it recedes and goes back, and you can't really put your finger on why or when that will happen, but when it's gone, you realize, oh, that's gone. Has Waterloo had a burlesque scene over the decades, and have you been able to see how it has kind of come in and out like a wave?
Yeah, so I started burlesquing in KW out of the long since gone Rum Runner pub. which was in the basement of the Walper Terrace. And I believe it was 2008. And back then we were called Revue Royale. And it was very do-it-yourself. And that, I think, is the best part of burlesque, especially then, because there was no reference other than what you could, I think it should be like this, so we'll just try it, right? And from there, it grew to, we had some monthly shows that we were doing out of various places, like the Rum Runner. Little Bean for a while was, I believe it was called the L Lounge, which is the lobby area of the Apollo Theater. And I've done stuff for the city, and it's actually really funny when I think back. And like, I mean, it's stripping. Like, I'm a fancy stripper, and I got a check from the city of Kitchener, made out to Sassy Ray like she has a bank account. That's very flattering, and I'm glad that like the illusion is so strong for you. But sweetheart,
so great,
darling, honey, she's not real, baby. No. But I think like anything, you know, you kind of find your niche, and burlesque is, as much as I think it really can appeal to a broad range of people, because most of it is funny and it's entertaining and it's lighthearted. You kind of find the pockets of people who are into it. And you're right, like you were saying, like anything else, like maybe some of those people move away, or you kind of go through seasons of your life, or maybe 10 years ago you didn't have 2 kids and you could go out on a Wednesday night, you know, you kind of have those ebbs and flows. But man, I'm hoping that Miss Corona, when she is done, people will be so hungry to come and do something and to get out of their house and maybe experience something that they haven't before, that, you know, we can pick up where we left off. I always describe myself as the cockroach of burlesque, though. Like, I'm just tenacious. If I want to do something, if I love to do something, I'll just find a way to do it. I was always a very independent kid. If you told me I couldn't do it, like out of spite, like, you don't think I can move that to the other side of this room?
It's a dare.
All right. Yeah, we'll see about that.
So, like, how are you guys surviving right now? You can't perform, obviously, and you can choose to answer this question or not. But I was listening to some podcasts where some burlesque performers are moving out of the realm. They're doing some online stuff, some private videoing, like some, here's a snippet into my life for pay.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's, there's such a large, diverse group of people who consider themselves burlesque dancers and performers, and some of them had day gigs already. I know a lot of people who did not, that maybe burlesque wasn't their full-time thing, but it was also DJing, or it was go-go dancing, or it was like so much of their income, if not all of it, revolved around nightlife and entertainment, which is just totally gone. I have alternate income streams, so I'm able to kind of continue working during the day. But for me personally, what I find so charming and, to be honest, marketable about burlesque and cabaret is the ambiance. It's an in-person event where, you know, we can get into this, but I think when people experience burlesque and cabaret performances that are moving, really, it's transformative. You enter a zone where you are not judging other people so much, so it automatically makes you judge yourself much less. And it kind of opens up this, like, wait a minute, maybe I'm not shit, you know? And people kind of start, like, you know, it's like Dorothy, like, you had the power inside you all along, you just had to click your heel. Like, you were never awful, you were never gross, you were always hot. And it sometimes it's like immersion therapy. You kind of have to be immersed in an environment where there are people showing examples to you that were like, yeah, I already knew that, idiot. I've always been hot. You know, that kind of gets that percolating. I really find it hard to emote that in a video performance. It's not something that burlesque wise, I think I'm really interested in trying to do. But, you know, other types of video content. I think it, if anything, this shutdown has shown us that like we need the arts. Like if we didn't have the arts, if we didn't have people creating content from Netflix to podcasts, what would we be doing right now?
Mm-hmm.
You have nothing to do. And I hope that when we're on the other side of it, you know, maybe there is a little more consideration to how much people's time is actually worth, and especially when it comes to artistic pursuits, because I have, you know, as I mentioned, like a couple other careers, and so many people in those worlds will be like, oh, so why didn't you do like the acting thing? Like, got a real job? Like, well, you know, all jobs are real because they happen in our dimension, right? So by default,
totally.
It's real, but they don't respect it, and maybe we'll see a shift.
So when you are able to perform in front of a crowd, what would be some of your favorite venues, like in terms of how the stage would be, or maybe how the seating would be assembled and the lighting? What's kind of your ideal place to do it? And then I imagine there's some places that just aren't a good fit.
This is a fantastic question. Oh my goodness. So my ideal situation is some kind of what's the word when it slants up?
Like an
amphitheater.
amphitheater.
Amphitheater, yes. I have performed at the Registry many times, and that's a beautiful spot. The only thing that makes that not ideal is they're not liquor licensed, and they won't let you bring booze inside the theater. So it would be somewhere very similar setup, maybe like a maximum capacity of 600, let's call it that. Cabaret table seating at the front, professional light rig, nice backstage area. I can't stress that enough.
and I imagine you'd like the stage to be at a certain level too, right?
Yeah, raised stages are always fantastic when everybody can see, because that's kind of the downfall of pretty much every venue in Kitchener-Waterloo. There's hardly any raised stages unless you're at the Registry where everybody can see because you're on that graduated seating. Mm-hmm. So I had started, we just did a year. Well, we would have been a year if we didn't get shut down. I was doing a monthly show at Sugar Run, which is a very cool little spot.
Shh, don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anybody. You can't tell anybody. You need a password. I got taken there by one of my burlesque students. And I walked in and was just like, holy shit, like this is so cool. And as you know, if anyone's ever tried to go to Sugar Run, you need to know the password, and they are not fucking around. Like, if you don't know the password, sorry about your luck, pal, not coming in. And you like knock the door, and the guy is so in character. He opens it up and is like, yeah, what do you want? Like, he's like, looks around like, okay, come in. That sold me. Like, he committed to the performance. That's a, you know, beautiful little spot. It's small, but it's sunken, so it's lower, but some not ideal places. I mean, I've performed, I mean, to give you an idea, like the change room was the kitchen of the restaurant, and our changing area was like, just watch out for that oil, because we just turned the deep fryers off. Like, okay, well, that's fine. Or like, so you guys can just like change in the men's handicap stall, right? Like, no. What? No one wants to. No. Nobody wants to go in there at all, let alone with all of my expensive belongings. Oh gosh, some places, I mean, I remember coming and I was dancing with a rockabilly band who shall remain nameless, and they did not tell the restaurant they were performing at that they were having burlesque dancers there. Surprise burlesque, not okay. Never cool.
Oh, I would
People
love
need
it.
to wear. I mean, I would love it, but I absolutely respect the fact that it's not for everybody. Not everybody is comfortable with nudity. I never, ever want to do the thing I love to do if it's going to upset somebody, ever. So that was, I mean, but this was also 2009, so another planet ago. And we show up, and it's like, I shit you not, like an English pub in a strip mall. And there are Leaf games playing on the TV. And like, old grandma and grandpa are there having their Sunday dinner, and me and my girlfriend have our feather fans and our little pasties on, and we're just like, I don't think we should do this, but you know, you do it because you're 27 and an idiot.
And, well, that's the job, right? That's the job you were hired.
That's the job. That's the job. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
those bars with the sports on TV. Good Lord. Or when Mother's Restaurant came back, they had like sports on one TV, right, like high def, right up against the Charlie Chaplin movie.
Yeah.
Like side by side. Like where are
it's really taking me out of the moment here, Mother.
Like where are you supposed to look? You know?
Yeah, pick a lane.
So back to the secret bar. Marshall was very surprised that we had a speakeasy scene in town.
Yeah.
Maybe because we're out in the burbs.
I
with
did not
kids.
know the term speakeasy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's like right in the heart of downtown Kitchener. Kip and Justin are the owners, and it's just such a unique space. Their drinks will make your bull run. Let me tell you, it's just a very boutique experience, and it tied in very well with the burlesque, with the speakeasy, need the password kind of thing. And I mean, before COVID, we were packed full of people, and it was really just kind of starting to get the momentum. And then, but they're still kicking, and you can get cocktails to go at Sugar Run Bar on Instagram. I wasn't even told to say that. I just really like the bar.
Just
please,
throw it right in there.
I really want to do more shows there, please.
I can't imagine how tough that is to not be able to do that thing that you love. So you were teaching dance before, but were you also teaching burlesque before the shutdown?
Yes. So I have been teaching burlesque since 2009, I guess.
How did that come about? I have heard that there's a community, like you had mentioned mentoring and the tight community that involves, and you sort of all bring more people in. But yeah, like how does that evolve, that you go from not knowing about it to performing and then teaching? How did that all happen?
Yeah, so I was a dance kid and a drama kid and a musical theater kid. So as an adult, I really missed that experience of dancing in unison with people and wearing costumes. And if you've ever been a dance kid, there's just a camaraderie that you have that I always really enjoyed that. And I missed that as an adult. And when I started to do burlesque, I would get asked at every show that I would do, like, where can I learn how to do this? And at the time in 2009, I mean, there was certainly nobody here, but even in bigger places like Montreal and Toronto, there was a scene there, and it had been established for a few years, but it still was very kind of in its early stages. And it just kind of came from the questions at the shows to then kind of thinking, I have a dance background, and on my resume, it says that I have strong leadership skills, which can be translated into I'm a bit bossy, and I'm a really good teacher. I'm really good at telling people what to do in a way that that's kind of my motto when I teach burlesque, especially, is like, I would never try to teach you how to do something if I didn't think that you could do it. And sometimes it's hard. As adults, I think we forget that when you're a little kid, you're expected to fail at learning something a million times. And as adults, when we pick up hobbies or whatever it is, there is such a overwhelming desire when it isn't immediately really easy to be like, nah, I don't like that.
Well, we've forgotten how to play, right?
Absolutely.
How to explore.
That's right. And to try and to let go of feeling silly, because number one, no one's paying that much attention to you.
Everyone's worried. Everyone's thinking about themselves.
Everyone's thinking about themselves.
Yeah.
So number one, girl, no one even cares. No one even sees. And number two, like, would you be so mean and rude to another person the way you talk to your, like, stupid, of course you wouldn't. So the teaching has then evolved into putting on student recitals, and from there would evolve to having students or people that I meet along the way being involved in my own productions, and it just grew and grew and grew. And like I said, I'm the cockroach, so you can't get rid of me. Yeah.
Can you see the influences in other burlesque performers? What I mean is, so I'm a big fan of professional wrestling, and over in Japan, a lot of wrestlers you can tell have been highly influenced by Michael Jackson and Freddie Mercury in the way they, with their pageantry and the way they dress and that. It looks a bit odd to North Americans because that's not quite what artists and performers do here. But when you watch other burlesque performers, you kind of go, oh, I can see you probably took a little bit of that from here and a little bit of that from there and from different eras. And it could be anything, it could be movies, I guess, and pop culture. And
Oh yeah. I mean, so the sort of the modern incantation of burlesque as it is now, we kind of have one vein that's I usually describe as classic or revival style burlesque, which I perform a lot of myself, which is a dance form that came from the laws around women's bodies. So, I mean, at the time in the 50s and the 60s and before that, they had such laws that, I mean, you couldn't show your butt crack. So you had to have sheer panties that had sequins down the butt crack so you couldn't see it. And from all of these rules and regulations came these very seductive, what we would think of now as like dorky looking moves. But back then it was salacious. And it was this way of kind of women who in their own way at the time were sex workers kind of saying, fuck you. Like, you're going to try to tell me that I can't show this or that or do that. So it's a dance form that it has its roots in that oppression, really. And there are a lot of performers who are more classically styled, who you can absolutely see them taking and sort of appreciating and reimagining ideas from classic dancers. So that could be like, everybody knows Gypsy Rose Lee, but another one is Jenny Lee, the Bazoom Girl was her tagline, and she had a lot of tassel tricks. Zorita is another one who did a lot of things with snakes and was very, there's a lot of influences there. So you can kind of see that. But then you also have nerdlesque or poplesque or whatever you want to call it. And there are entire shows. I've been in productions that were all Disney themed. I was Ariel and I sang a dirty version of Part of Your World.
Oh, I would love to hear that.
Oh, well, there's video footage, so I'll send you the link. There's been Harry Potter shows, Star Wars shows. I mean, pop culture shows in general. Where Ruby Moon, I already mentioned, she does Napoleon Dynamite. She does Obi-Wan Kenobi. She has one where she's Edward Scissorhands. So it's really cool. Olive on Top, have to mention, she does one where she's Dirk Diggler from Boogie Nights. And another one where she's Bob Ross. And then she'll come out.
She's using that wig again. That's what's happening.
That's right. That's exactly right. Because she knows where she is in the set. And then at the end, the afro wig comes off, and she's this goddess with a sword on her head, dancing in the most femme princess you've ever seen. So it's really cool to see how it kind of keeps progressing that way.
Sassy Ray, are you able to explain how the physics of the tassels work? And the way, like they're mesmerizing, but I can't even imagine putting those on my hand and making them work.
Yep. I feel like if I tried it, it'd be like it would be like tapping your head and rubbing your belly while hopping on one.
No, but when it works, it's absolutely mesmerizing.
I bet.
But there must be a ton of some inherent understanding of how your body's going to make these tassels move in that way.
There must be.
That's exactly right. And it's very insightful. And it all ties into not being afraid to move your own body. So when I teach people how to tassel twirl, and that's a big part, obviously, you can imagine the meat and potatoes of what I do as a burlesque instructor, people either think, oh, my tits are way too small, it'll never work. Or, oh, my tits are way too big, it'll never work.
That was mine. I was like, no, they're too big over here. It's not
all right. So what is it? You're either too big, you're too small. No one can do it. That's just not true. It's just letting go of feeling embarrassed by the way your body moves. Nobody cares. So I believe if we're talking physics, it would be what the law was, that momentum. So you kind of just have to get used to letting your meat hang as it will, essentially. And, as cis women in society, we are very conditioned to compress and minimize and, you know, push up and hold our breasts in these really unnatural ways. So sometimes it does kind of take a minute or two to learn how your flesh actually hangs. But it's exactly that. It's being connected to your body and knowing like, well, if I move my shoulder like this, my tit's going to move like that. So then I have to learn this pattern in my head. And, you know, in a weird way, it's very zen.
I see the way you're moving, and it's like, it's not what I would have imagined. It's because obviously when the tassels are twirling, no one's watching at your shoulder movement, most likely.
That's
right. So you're doing this sort of exaggerated back and forth, like if you were pretending to walk.
That's right.
And so I would never have thought.
What I always tell anybody who takes a class with me, if you've ever seen the movie Austin Powers, the fembots from Austin Powers who come out and they have the little guns in their bra and they move their shoulders forward and they go bap, 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 and that's what it is. And you just kind of have to do that slowly, let them jiggle, and then you move it, and then you can feel it when they're going. I always, like, one of my signature moves is kind of like to move my hair away and like look like I'm checking my nails out, but I'm actually just looking down to make sure that they're moving.
Hang on, I just gotta wait. Can you buy these locally, or are they?
Oh, I make them, honey.
Really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, can I ask that? Sorry, Marshall, I see that you've got a question brewing.
And what kind of material is
like what are you, because it's obviously, is it adhesive? We're not talking suction here, so it's adhesive.
Oh man, suction would be great. So usually how I make them is I use something that's called buckram, which is just like a really stiff, kind of almost like cardboard like material. And I make the, you know, whatever the shape is, so the heart or the cone or whatever. And I am partial to a rhinestone. I also love a sequin, but I love a sparkly base. And then I just take a piece of fringe in a matching color and I make a little tassel out of it. So you can customize them. And I have so many friends who are much more talented than I am at making pasties, but I'm also very cheap. So almost all my pasties I've cobbled together myself in the dead of night, high on marijuana.
But so you do have to be resourceful though, because you're making stuff. Like you are, if you are going to be super creative with what your content is, what your performance is, we're not just talking content here, then you have to be resourceful. You can't be just ordering this stuff from far away lands at any time. Right? You have a sewing machine, you've got the craft station.
Well, it's funny. So when I first started burlesque, I was very poor. I was in my mid to late 20s. And I mean, I lived paycheck to paycheck. I didn't have any money at all. So in the same vein of being a child who loved Halloween and had lots of dance costumes and things to make other things out of, that's always been a talent of mine, is kind of to make something beautiful out of, you know, something you find at Value Village or something you've repurposed, you've saved because I love the sparkly bits on this, but I'm never going to wear this thing ever again. And now as an older person, I have my financial situation has improved. So I could have people make things for me, but I just love to do it. Like for me, it is a very zen, makes me very present. I love more than anything else. This sounds bizarre, but it's just where my heart lives because I was born in 1983. I'm from the 90s. It's my home planet, and I'd love to go back there as soon as possible. I love to put on 1990s kids commercial compilations. And they're like 8 hours long, just like cereal, toys, whatever. Just this comforting background of things that are slightly familiar, get nice and toasted and rhinestone, or it's all of a sudden 7 hours are gone, and you're like, wow, I have this beautiful garment, and my fingers have third-degree burns, but. But I do have a sewing machine, but I do not know how to use it. I'm very instant gratification gal. I make everything, but it's almost all with a glue gun.
Very resourceful.
Yeah, the commercials today compared to the 90s are pretty saturated with personal injury lawyers And have you been injured in a car accident, or America is full of commercials about medicine? These side effects may something, right?
You can still bank with us during COVID.
Yeah. Or that stupid Trivago guy.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Sassy Ray.
I think, didn't he have like a DUI charge or something? Yeah.
And it filled me with so much schadenfreude. Sorry, go ahead.
So when you're teaching, I think of a burlesque performance as you're telling a story, right? And it has a crescendo. And I think a lot of it, I imagine, depends on, you probably have to tell people at times like to slow down. And I don't know if you say less is more or not, but I mean, I imagine something that's detrimental to a burlesque performance is hurrying through it and trying to get too much in, when really the beauty of it to me seems like every part of your body has the potential to tell a story. You talked about moving your hand to look at your nails. Every single thing you do, the way you turn your head or move your hair, is telling part of that story. Is that where you're investing a lot of your time when you're teaching burlesque?
Yes. So what I often try to impart to my students, especially when we're talking about solos, excuse me, because my classes usually run in a format where we are learning a group number, and I teach that choreography. I come up with that and I drill them on the choreography. And through them learning that choreography, I kind of hope to impart some wisdom for them to go off. And then if they're in the class that wants to do the solo, they come up with their own solo. They kind of show me what they're working on. They show me their costumes. I give them notes, but it's very much kind of left up to them to put this together. And I always tell them that the artistry of a successful striptease is all in your face, and you must remain relaxed. It has to look like, oh, this ain't shit. Your whole demeanor needs to be emanating like this is purposeful, and I have prepared something, and aren't you so lucky to be able to be here and see it? Lucky you. And you get there through preparation, right? So that means that exactly what you said, if you're on stage and your song is, when my girls are beginners, well, my kids, I should say, they're not all girls, are beginners, I tell them, make sure your music ends around 3.5 minutes. That's a long time. It doesn't seem like a long time, but that's a lot of time to fill. And what can happen, and I'm also a musician, I play a lot of instruments and I sing, and I know from being a musician that when you're nervous, it can be very easy to play too fast. I play the drums, and that is a huge note that drummers in especially like band ensembles will get in high school, especially, is that you're moving too quickly because you're nervous, because you're going too fast. If you're a drummer in a band, everybody else is going to follow you and the song is going to be done. If you're a burlesque performer and you have 5.5 minutes of music and all of your clothes have hit the floor at 2 minutes, that's 3.5 minutes worth of material and then you get the really awkward moments where they're doing the Charleston, like, and in my mind, I'm always thinking like, God, like, if only it was, the 30s where we could bring out the big hook, like pull people off, here comes the hook, or they fall through a little trap door, because you're right. It needs to be, whatever your story is. And it doesn't have to be, the literal version of like, well, this is a story about like, I'm a dog and I really want to get this food. The story can be, I'm a very sexy lady from 1949 and I'm dancing to an old timey song. And this is what I have prepared to make money, right? That's a story. That is a story. And the preparation. And I think, a lot of people, see a burlesque show and they're very inspired. And I believe the reason is really rooted in because they're seeing people glamorized who look a little bit like them. And when we're talking about the history of stripping and nudity in general, when it comes to femme presenting bodies, there is undeniably an ideal that's been presented for a very long time. And to go to a show where you see someone who maybe looks a little bit like you, maybe they're a little heavier, or maybe they don't have any, they don't have very big breasts, or maybe, they're really tall, or there's something that's kind of deviated from that conventional idea.
Yeah. I was gonna say over marketed norm, but conventional.
Yes, that's the conventional norm. And as much as that is a wonderful thing, and that is, I believe strongly, what makes burlesque relevant today, there is also inherently tied to that this idea, and this is my personal opinion, so this isn't a fact, but this is what I believe from my own experiences, is that people attach the idea of oftentimes fat-bodied people doing something that inherently must make it easier for them to do the same thing. So you then run into this unfortunate cycle where you have these burlesque shows that happen. And while I foster very much inclusivity and having a place for people to try weird things and to try stuff out, but it then can sometimes almost become where there's no quality control at all. And it's very interesting to me, as somebody who has varied in size very much throughout my career, to have people say things to me like, the example I will give you is my most loathed: "You're so brave."
Oh yeah, the brave.
So inspirational.
I'm not brave, I'm naked.
And my response would always be like, I hear what you're saying, and my response to that is, who is brave here? Brenda, you, for saying that to my face. I'm like, are you kidding me? But you have to understand where that comes from. That is a person who has seen somebody that kind of looks like them, and they think that they're shit. They have no self-esteem. They think that they are an ugly lump that no one would ever want to see up on a stage, let alone, in any other sensual capacity. So they're projecting their feelings about themselves onto you, which isn't my problem. But after a while, that can become very, not discouraging, but it gets old. But when you have this arena for, really, it's a fringe art. And if we're looking at what we're doing, which is stripping, it's a place where we have said, you do not have to weigh a certain amount. You do not have to have a certain skin tone. You do not have to be a certain age. You do not have to be a certain gender. All of these barriers that have existed and have these people who make comments like that believe that if you aren't those things, you're excluded from ever feeling sexy or desirable. That's where that comes from. And, it's, I think that that's kind of why it's important that we have burlesque.
That's such a good point. I mean, there's so many points in our lives where we realize, especially as we get older, that some of the shit that people are throwing at you is their own. It's not reactive to something that you've done. It is definitely an implosion of what their own deal is on that specific day in that given time. And they're just pouring that on you and they're projecting it on you.
Yeah, it's an interesting time now, I think, as well. There's been so much growth in the body positivity movement, and burlesque inherently is body positive. It should be, anyways. And it really was kind of came, the resurgence, or neo burlesque or nouveau burlesque, what we kind of call from the 90s and onward, when it kind of had a resurgence, that it was really made by people who felt very rejected from mainstream media. And they have talents, they have things that people want to pay money to see, and to kind of see a lot of barriers, especially around size, not being lifted. I wouldn't go that far, but being at least recognized and talked about is progress. And it's funny, I recently, I guess maybe a year and a half ago, I lost quite a bit of weight. And when I did that, I had this feeling or this thought in the back of my mind about burlesque, because a lot of my brand, if we want to call it that, is built on body positivity. And I was worried that would people think I lost weight because I hated myself, or I didn't, and the reason, truly, the reason why I lost weight is nobody's business. It doesn't matter why anybody loses or gains weight. That really shouldn't be a thing that we talk about at all. But this idea that, you have to be held hostage to what people think your outward appearance says about your ideas about the world is really what burlesque is about, right? Because you can be, a librarian and do burlesque at night. It's kind of a, it's kind of a middle finger to a lot of stuff.
It is.
Yeah, I really struggle when I hear people. It's usually people complimenting women on weight loss, and they emphasize how good you look and how great you look, and it always kind of comes to me as though there's a bit of a message there that the older version of yourself wasn't so great.
Yeah,
I really struggle with hearing that because I don't feel that way about people, and then we turn it on ourselves and think about ourselves too.
The biggest compliments I ever got in my life about my appearance were, I used to do, when gyms were open, spin classes early in the morning for mental health. Like I love getting a sweat on and it feels so good to just start the day that way. But I was off for a few weeks because I had a very painful oral surgery that took a lot of recovery, and you can't eat. And if you do, it just doesn't feel good. And I dropped a ton of weight. And I was sad. I also had a reaction to the antibiotics that they gave me. And I think I probably lost like 16, 17 pounds in those few weeks.
Yeah.
So I finally kind of pull myself together. Okay, I'm going to go try one of my spin classes. And I get there. Every person in the room, oh my God, you look amazing. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. You look fantastic. And it's like, you keep lying around feeling sorry for myself and not being able to play with my kids. I was in pain, worried that my gums might start bleeding. Like
I should just continuously get oral surgery.
Yeah, I felt like garbage. I felt like absolute garbage because I didn't think I looked bad before that. I felt pretty good about myself before the incident.
And that's something that, more recently in my career, I've experienced, and it came from strange places, and exactly that. I've experienced the same thing when people would notice that I'd lost weight, and I mean, you have no idea why I've lost weight. It could be because I have Crohn's. It could be because it could be because I worked out a whole bunch and I tried to. It could be because I had oral surgery. It could be it's none of your business. But it was an odd thing to experience which it was a fear of mine, that I went to a drag show in a circle where I work a lot, so people kind of know who I am. And I'd seen a fan, let's call her, that I hadn't seen in a very long time. And she said to me, like, you look so good. I'm like, oh, well, thank you so much. She's like, you're so skinny now. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not skinny, but I had lost about 50 pounds, which is a lot of weight. She's like, and I used to see you perform, and I'd always think like, there she is doing that, and like she's really pretty and she's fat, and now you look like this. I'm like, whoa,
it's like it's social currency.
That's right. And it's like
worth more now because I am taking up less space.
And that's what I mean. And like, number one, I have always and will always be a smoke show. I was cute as hell before I lost weight. I mean, look at me. I got paid to take my clothes off. I was a very cute girl. And I think that, a part of burlesque for me, and I've seen this transformative power in a lot of my students and people I've come into contact through burlesque, is this realization that there are so many ice cream flavors. And not that you should be looking for value and self-confidence through other people's perceptions of you. But I think it's garbage to pretend that it doesn't, make us feel great when we feel desired. And the stark reality is like, you have been lied to, my dude. Like, you have been sold a whack of bullshit that is not true. And 90% of your suffering is coming from believing in these lies. And, when you can kind of be scooped into this environment where it isn't in spite of, it's because of what you look like, people are into you, that switch happens. And I love to see it.
Sassy Ray, as we start to wind down.
Oh my gosh, it's almost 8.
Yep.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Can you indulge me here? So we were talking about Bob's Burgers, the animated comedy earlier. And so some of my favorite episodes of Bob's Burgers have to do with Bob and Linda often being put in an awkward situation where they're out of their comfort zone, right? Sometimes it's like a really high-end party, or it could be any number of things. Usually Linda's much more open to these ideas, and Bob's the one who's resistant, which is what makes it funny. But can you imagine for me a situation where, let's say, Gail, Linda, and Bob are all at a burlesque show, not realizing that they were going, And baby, what would Gail say about it as they come out of there? And how do you think that would go?
Oh my God. I think that all three of those characters are open-minded, cool people. And I think Linda would come out like, all right, I want to get some of those titty tassels. You like those, huh? And Bob would probably be drunk. and Gail, like,
Linda, what if you think if at the end of our song we put on some of those titty tassels and we just spun them around?
That's awesome. At some point, you need a moment where the word comes up, burlesque, and Teddy wouldn't even know what burlesque means. Yeah.
I love when Teddy thought that Bob's last name was Burgers.
That's right. Yeah.
Bob Burgers. Like, you think my last name is Burgers? Yeah, Bob Burgers.
So I'm gonna have to start watching this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, it's so good.
It brings my family so much joy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jane Louise, come on, we're going to T's karate concert. She's in a kookaburra class.
I mean, right? Voiceover work. That's the next step.
Hey, that is the next step. I've heard that's lucrative right now. I have so many questions, but I know we have to wrap it up. I have one last question about like your burly name in life. I've heard this term, the burly name in life, and your day job, etc. So some people have to worry, right? Some people are putting on the suit and tie and turning on the Zoom all day doing work, and because that's how we work now. and some people are fully immersed in the life. So what's the temperature like that of that, like around KW? Like, do you find that that people are respectful, maybe not posting too many pictures and tagging people, or do you find that it's more open around here?
I would say at my shows and my productions, anyways, I always announce before we have a show that you're more than welcome to take pictures with the dancers after the show if you ask them and they'd like to pose for a picture with you. And if you'd like to take a picture of us while we're dancing or performing while we're clothed, that's fine. For me, I'm lucky. I do have a professional career during the day, but they know about what I do. I've always been very open about it because it's my nightmare to have somebody be like, wait a minute, is this you? And then, you know, you have all this explaining to do. So that's luckily not something that I have had to worry about. But for me, more than that, I mean, I want you to come to the show. I want you to buy a ticket. I don't want you to get to see the climax of all the things that I do on the internet. It's an in-person vibing experience. So I find around KW, you know, especially as kind of a Mennonite Germantown as it can be, there are a lot of people who are, you know, kind of into fringe arts, and they're respectful for the most part. People who are kind of more interested in more interesting endeavors, they take instruction very well.
We probably won't include this, but I have heard that there is like, there's sometimes a guys, it's almost like the theater that's involved with wrestling. There can sometimes be a guys like you have Sassy Ray, but maybe you have a twin who's like Rayette Sassy or something.
Oh,
you know,
it's so funny. My boyfriend loves wressling, is obsessed with Mexican, Japanese, any and all. He's kind of like an encyclopedia brain. So he has, you'd get along well. Yeah. And he will say all the time, like, burlesque and wrestling are so similar. Like, they're so, like, the characterization and, like, oh my gosh, it's actually a long-standing dream of mine to have, like, a raven-haired evil version of myself. Sassy, what was your name for it?
I said Rayette Sassy.
So
Real.
Sassy Ray, my questions actually often come. Sarah doesn't always know, but they come from a wrestling.
I do sometimes.
So when I was talking about slowing down the performance, that's a big thing in wrestling. Yeah. Wrestling today is guys get in a ring. They're doing too many moves too fast. Yeah. And the old timers are like, slow it down, tell a story. Mm-hmm. So it's funny you would say that, because that's exactly where a lot of my questions come from, is my deep love and obsession with wrestling.
And it's all the same thing, right? It's pageantry. It's moving to climax. It's keeping people engaged, and it's being entertaining. And if you blow your load in the first 45 seconds, well, now you're just walking around with a bloody nose. Great. You did it.
That's the end of the show.
And that concludes the podcast.
This was so much fun. Hey all, thanks for meeting us in Bonn Park. Please like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on the platform that you're listening to. And follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bonn Park Podcast. Original music by Alan Lung.